Well, a very good morning to you once again, coming to you live from the Lepelle-Nkumpi Civic Centre. Well, this is where President Jacob Zuma will officially launch the 16 Days of Activism of Violence Against Women and Children campaign. And of course, those are all important national dialogues which will start on the 29th of November here in the Limpopo province. Now, those national dialogues, which will then move throughout the country, are aimed at fostering dialogue and getting the experiences of those who've been affected by violence and abuse in the country. So those dialogues, we're seeing government really changing its strategy in terms of dealing with the scourge that continues to face South Africa. You'd know, of course, that the country did adopt this 16 days of activism against the violence against women and children in 2008, and significant strides have been made over the past couple of years to deal with this scourge. But one of the main questions that's still being asked at this stage is what the driving force is behind the continuing abuse against women and children. We know here in the Limpopo province, where these national dialogues will begin on the 29th of November, really speak to the concerns by the provincial government in this province about the rising number of incidents against women and children, in particularly driven by witchcraft, we understand, and also femicide issues where you've got some women who are killed by their spouses. And one of the other issues of major concern here is young boys raping old women. We understand in this province that's one of the major driving factors of the numbers that we're seeing in this province relating to the violence against women and children. Let's continue with our discussion. We were chatting a bit earlier on to Githuku-Shongwe, who's with UN Women, the representative in South Africa. Thank you very much for staying with us. We spoke a bit earlier on about the great strides that South Africa has made, but there's still an issue relating to prevention and how much more South Africa can pour in to the prevention of this scourge to begin with.
Yes, I was saying that we're finding that while we've got lots and lots of interventions in terms of victim empowerment, we've got lots of investment in work that for survivors of violence, the work on prevention is one that needs to understand in detail what the drivers are. So the national dialogues will be a great opportunity, and we see this as a global first, where South Africa is choosing to talk to communities to understand, despite the efforts that are there, despite the interventions, whether from the police, the justice system, the social development, from all the different initiatives that are there, why is it still not shifting? But also, what is the peculiar shape of the epidemic in a particular community? Because what we know is that in one community you might find witchcraft is driving that, but we want to know what are the cultural biases? What is the kind of patriarchy that is driven in a particular community? And so this is what we're expecting the dialogues to begin to evolve, but also to then say to us, what does that mean for the response? We're hearing about police who, in some instances, are ignoring some of the provisions that are made that they're supposed to actually use to guide their responses. Yes. How do we work with the police to make sure that their own cultural and patriarchal biases are put aside and they actually begin to respond to this epidemic in a serious way? So, yeah.
Many questions are being asked at this stage about the involvement of men in these dialogues, and I guess this will be a great opportunity through these national dialogues to get men involved, to also get all of society involved so that you're able to deal with the scourge that continues to plague South Africa.
We think this is a very, very crucial point. At UN Women globally, we have an initiative that we call He for She. He for She is a solidarity campaign for men for gender equality. The government itself here, as part of the preparations for the national dialogue, brought together the Commission for Gender Equality, Sonke Gender Justice, different community organizations to prepare men and to talk to men in particular. So what we want to see through these dialogues is what are the roles that men are playing? We've got community leaders, we've got chiefs, we've got kings in our region. What are they saying to their community? So the involvement of men is crucial, and we believe that it is possible for us through this process to mobilize men. Taxi drivers. Yes. Taxi drivers carry women from one point to another. They can actually become champions for gender-based violence. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is working on a program with taxi associations. And so this is a real opportunity to change the narrative where it's not the victim's business to be the one always trying to defend ourselves as women, but for men to begin to take responsibility and say, we want to save the future generation. We want to be the ones to change this direction. So the He for She campaign calls on men to actually...
Just before we wrap up, I understand we really run out of time, but how important is it for the justice system to play a role in this? Because the reasons why we find ourselves in this position is that people lost hope that something would be done if they reported that they'd been involved in incidents relating to violence and abuse. So the justice system and how it deals with the perpetrators is quite crucial.
It is very crucial. What we see in other countries around the world, where the justice system is intolerant of any form of violence and takes corrective measures immediately and actually has very, very strong litigation, we actually see action. Tomorrow, the South Africa women and lawyers are going to meet, and the conversation is really to try to bring the justice system directly to speak to survivors of violence, but also to the community. And so we see that South Africa is taking the steps, but we need to just keep encouraging greater and greater litigation. It is the responsibility of this justice system to shape the future of the response to gender-based violence in this country.
Thank you very much for your time as always there. And Githuku-Shongwe, just giving us some insight about where South Africa stands in terms of faring with dealing with the issue of the scourge of violence against women and children. We are expecting proceedings to get underway. We see quite a lot of the dignitaries coming into the Civic Centre at this stage. We're expecting President Jacob Zuma, of course, to deliver that address at about 10 o'clock this morning on how government plans to strengthen its strategies on dealing with violence against women and children. But most importantly, there's national dialogues which will kick off on the 29th of November here in Limpopo to speak to many of the communities. We're talking about business people, people in the rural settings, in the urban settings, about their experiences relating to violence and abuse, and how government will then be able to take those experiences and strengthen the policies it has with dealing with this scourge. We'll certainly bring you a lot more here from the Lepelle-Nkumpi Civic Centre as a proceedings get underway.
So much to updates here to Indaba. Criselda Lewis live from Lepelle-Nkumpi in Limpopo. Do stay tuned to SABC News Channel 4 of West. You will be coming through, bringing with the latest, because President Jacob Zuma is expected to officially launch the 16 Days of Activism against violence